The galaxy was vast, infinitely so it seemed, a glittering expanse of stars, worlds, and civilizations, each with its own intricate web of culture, technology, and history. Thousands of species coexisted, their fates intertwined by trade, diplomacy, and the occasional conflict. For eons, the cosmic order had remained stable, with each species occupying a role within this grand, unspoken hierarchy. There were the peaceful Xerics, their technologically advanced ships gliding serenely through the cosmos. The haughty, almost godlike Vaxilians, who manipulated energy with ease. And the psionically gifted Karathi, capable of controlling minds across entire star systems. A loose coalition of these species had stood at the center of it all, an authority that kept the balance in check, maintaining peace and stability across countless systems. Their scouts and emissaries had explored every corner of the galaxy, cataloging the countless civilizations they encountered, studying them, and determining their place in the greater whole. Most species followed a predictable pattern, reaching certain technological milestones, evolving socially, and eventually finding their place within the Federation. And then came the humans. At first, they were nothing more than a curiosity, a primitive, unremarkable species from a small blue planet in a remote sector of the galaxy. Their technology was crude, their ships clunky, and their understanding of the cosmos woefully limited. The Federation took little interest in them. They were far from the powerful, ancient species the galaxy had come to respect. Surely the humans would evolve like so many others, gradually rising, reaching a point where they too could join the greater galactic community. But something about humanity stood out, something that even the most advanced species couldn't anticipate. It wasn't their weapons, their technology, or their biology. It was something deeper, something far more primal. Humans, it seemed, were driven by a force that no other species had quite understood, an unyielding, almost irrational drive to create. Other species were content to improve upon existing ideas, refining technologies or enhancing their natural abilities. The humans, however, seemed to have an insatiable hunger for invention, for the creation of things that had never existed before. And they did it with a speed and intensity that within a few centuries of first contact, humans had achieved faster than light travel, built machines that could manipulate entire ecosystems, and created technologies that many species thought were impossible. And yet, none of these accomplishments were as remarkable as the way humans approached life itself. They had no fear of failure, no hesitation in trying what others deemed impossible. At first, the Federation was impressed. The humans were a testament to the limitless potential of intelligence and determination. But as time passed, something darker began to emerge. The more the Federation observed, the more they realized that the humans had something no one else could match, an ability to dream beyond the confines of reality itself. They could envision possibilities that other species didn't even know existed, and worse, they could make them happen. And that, as the galaxy would soon learn, was the most terrifying thing of all. It all began innocuously, as many things do when a species has no idea that they are on the brink of altering the course of history. The discovery of the artifact was entirely by accident. A small scouting party from the Lorid system, an ancient race known for their unparalleled telepathic abilities, had been sent to survey a forgotten planet at the edges of the known galaxy. The world, known as Gylor, had been abandoned eons ago, its once thriving cities reduced to nothing more than crumpled ruins. Its ruins were a mystery even to the Lorids, whose vast archives of galactic history had long since deemed the planet insignificant. It was a relic of a time when the galaxy had been young. The Lorids, always curious about the mysteries of the past, decided to explore further. In a distant, overgrown temple hidden beneath layers of jungle, they uncovered something strange. A stone, carved with symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of their energy lamps. It was a smooth, dark surface that gave off an unsettling, otherworldly energy. No one could say exactly why, but as soon as the First Lord Ambassador made contact with the stone, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over them, a feeling that could not be explained by reason alone. The moment the ambassador's hand brushed the artifact, the stone hummed, sending a wave of telepathic energy through the mind of every Lord in proximity. For a split second, they were all connected, not just with each other, but with something far older, far darker. The visions that followed were disorienting. It wasn't just the future they saw, but an impossible cascade of branching possibilities, all governed by a single terrifying idea: the humans. What the Lords had touched was not a simple artifact, but a remnant of a long-lost race. A race that had somehow foreseen the rise of humanity and had left behind this stone as a warning. The Lords saw flashes of humans in small, unassuming ships traveling from system to system, quietly absorbing knowledge, relentlessly innovating, pushing beyond the limits of the known universe. But what truly terrified them was the realization that the humans, through sheer determination, had found a way to transcend the very fabric of reality itself. The lurid mind, sensitive and honed over millennia, could not escape the implications of this discovery. The artifact contained no message, no warning in words, but rather a gut-wrenching feeling, a silent recognition that the humans possessed a power that was beyond the scope of the galaxy's oldest and most advanced species. It was a power not of technology or biology, but something far more insidious: the ability to shape and redefine the very nature of existence. The Lorid leaders debated what to do next, but one thing became clear: they could not let this knowledge spread. The fear they felt was palpable. There was a terror in their minds, a growing panic that if others in the galaxy knew of the humans' potential, it would change everything. They could not allow it. This was a secret that, once revealed, could shatter the foundation of all that the Federation had built. And so, the Lorids did what they thought was the only logical thing. They decided to contain the artifact, to bury it deep within their archives, hidden from the eyes of any who might seek it. But the humans were already on their way. The first human scout ship arrived in the system shortly after the Lords had made their decision. Quietly, without fanfare, it slipped through the Lord security as if guided by some unseen force. The humans had no idea what they had stumbled upon. They had no knowledge of the artifact, of the terror it had caused the Lorids, and yet they knew exactly where to find it. No one had expected this. The Federation had thought the humans would be an inconsequential species. Now, they were learning the hard way that in the quietest corners of the galaxy, far from the bright lights of powerful civilizations, something very dangerous had been growing, and soon the galaxy would tremble. Not from a weapon or a fleet, the revelation but from the simple presence of humanity, like the dawning itself, of an unsettling truth that no one was quite ready to face. For the first time in their long history, the Eldrin, the ancient race known for their unparalleled mastery of science and wisdom, found themselves troubled by a question they could not answer. The Eldrin had seen many species rise and fall, their knowledge of galactic evolution rivaled by none. They had studied the stars, the forces that governed them, and the very fabric of reality itself. But nothing had prepared them for what they discovered about humanity. It began with a singular artifact, a relic unearthed from the depths of their historical archives, a forgotten record, a fragment of an older, much older history. At first, the Eldrin dismissed it as irrelevant. It was simply a strange and obscure notation from a time long before they had established their place in the galaxy. But as the record was studied more carefully, something began to surface that the Eldrin could not ignore. It wasn't a prophecy or a premonition, but a detailed account. one written by an unknown race long since lost to the galaxy. The document described a species unlike any other, a species that, in the most unexpected of ways, had changed the course of their own history and the history of the galaxy itself. The Eldrin historians read the ancient words, their minds connecting the dots as the truth emerged with chilling clarity. The lost race had recorded the early moments of humanity's evolution, documenting how this fledgling species had begun to display a strange and powerful trait that no one else had. The Eldrin realized, with a growing sense of dread, that humanity's most terrifying gift was not something they could easily quantify or define. It was not an ability that could be measured by technology, nor was it a force that could be contained. The record written eons ago outlined the astonishing capacity of humans to envision and create things beyond the limits of what the universe had dictated. They could bend the laws of physics, rewrite what was considered impossible, and imagine futures that defied logic. No one had realized it at the time, but humans had the unique ability to change reality itself, not through brute force or the manipulation of energy, but through the sheer act of dreaming. They could conjure entire worlds from nothing, alter the course of events, and reshape the very fabric of existence through their ideas and willpower. What terrified the Eldrin most was the fact that humanity's potential was entirely unrestrained. While other species, even those with far superior technology and power, had limits, either physical, biological, or societal, humans had none. They could push the boundaries of what was conceivable in ways that others could not. And as the Eldrin continued to read, they saw it. The ancient record described how this very trait had nearly brought the galaxy to ruin. The Eldrin quickly shared their findings with the highest echelons of the Galactic Federation. The news spread like wildfire, and soon the entire galaxy was abuzz with fear. Species that had once viewed humanity as an insignificant curiosity now regarded them as a harbinger of chaos. The Federation, despite its vast resources and centuries of stability, had no answer for this. They had never encountered anything like humanity before. It was as if the humans had tapped into something older than the stars themselves. The Eldrin had long believed that all intelligent species eventually reached the same conclusion, that the ultimate goal of evolution was to reach a form of collective understanding, a perfect harmony with the universe. But the humans, humanity, had no such aspirations. They didn't seek harmony, they sought to create. And therein lay the danger. The other species had long since accepted the limits of their knowledge, their power, their understanding of the universe. But the humans had never accepted anything as final. They saw limits only as temporary obstacles to be overcome. And that was the terrifying part. The galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations had long understood the concept of balance. The universe had order, but humanity had no regard for balance. They could shatter order and recreate it as they saw fit. They could alter reality, change the course of history, and all the while, they would never even realize how dangerous they were becoming. The Federation leaders met in emergency sessions. The galaxy's greatest minds began to formulate a response, but no one knew where to begin. They couldn't suppress the humans' creativity, for it was embedded in their very nature. Nor could they isolate them. They were everywhere, expanding and evolving at an unpredictable pace. Humanity's greatest strength had become the galaxy's greatest fear. As the Federation pondered what to do, one thing became clear. There was no way to stop them. The only question left was whether they could survive the consequences of a species that could, at any moment, change the universe with nothing more than a thought. It wasn't supposed to go like this. The negotiations had been planned meticulously, as they always were, with all the right protocols, the right formalities, the right assurances. The Federation had always prided itself on its diplomacy. Treaties signed in glittering council chambers, peace agreements inked with the confidence of centuries-old traditions. But nothing about the meeting with the Myrics had gone according to plan. The Myrics were a formidable race, militaristic, disciplined, and technologically advanced. They had spent millennia perfecting their art of war, building fleets of ships so powerful that entire star systems quivered at the mere mention of their name. The Federation had been cautious around them, but they knew how to negotiate with force. As long as everyone adhered to the rules, peace was maintained. But when the humans entered the room, everything changed. The Federation had sent a representative to oversee the talks, an experienced diplomat who had brokered dozens of deals with species far more volatile than the Myrics. He had no reason to believe this meeting would be any different. But when the humans arrived, everything about the room shifted in a way he couldn't with grand gestures or pompous introductions. They simply entered the chamber, a small group of 5, their faces calm, their eyes unremarkable. At least, that's how they appeared at first. They were dressed in simple attire, nothing that suggested they were anything other than a delegation of mediators or perhaps minor officials. The Myrics, towering and warlike, looked down upon them with disdain. The diplomat and his Federation colleagues exchanged glances, a mixture of confusion and mild amusement. After all, it was the Myrics that were the true power in the room, not these seemingly unassuming humans. But as the humans spoke, a strange tension began to build. Their words were simple, polite, and measured. They spoke of trade routes, of mutual benefits, of cooperation, but beneath the surface there was something far more unsettling. The diplomat noticed it first, a small but undeniable shift in the atmosphere, a sensation he couldn't quite name. It was as if the room itself was subtly bending to the will of the humans. The Myrics ambassador, a towering figure with heavily augmented limbs, spoke next. His words were sharp, laced with the kind of arrogance that only years of military dominance could bring. But the humans didn't flinch. They merely nodded, their responses polite but unwavering. The Myrics didn't know how to react. They were accustomed to being the dominant force, to bending others to their will through fear or power. But this was different. It wasn't the human strength that was causing the discomfort. It was their utter lack of fear. The humans spoke with the confidence of a species that believed they were on equal footing with anyone in the room, and then, no matter their reputation or their power, but not in any conventional sense. There were no raised voices, no explosions of anger. It was as if the very foundation of the negotiation had been gently, almost imperceptibly eroded. The Myrics delegation, who had entered the room with sharp, commanding presence, suddenly seemed unsure of themselves. The humans' quiet, steadfast composure began to chip away at their confidence. The ambassador's demands grew more forceful, his tone more insistent, but the humans remained unwavering. It was then that the Myritrax, who prided themselves on their strategic genius, felt a creeping sensation that they had lost control of the situation without even realizing it. The meeting concluded with no agreement, no handshake, but the outcome was far more devastating than anyone had predicted. When the humans left the chamber, there was no grand exit, no overt declaration of victory. They simply walked out, leaving behind a room of silent, uncertain delegates. Within hours, the Myrics were gone. Not in a way that anyone could explain, but they were simply not there. Their fleet, their cities, their advanced infrastructure, all wiped from existence without so much as a whisper. The Federation tried to piece together the details, but nothing made sense. No attacks, no explosions, no signs of violence, just an entire race gone. The humans had done it again without lifting a finger, without even raising their voices. They had reshaped reality itself, erasing an entire civilization from the galaxy with nothing more than their will to do so. It was a power that no one could understand, much less contend with. The Federation, in its panicked search for answers, realized the truth. The humans didn't need weapons. They didn't need armies. Their minds alone were the weapon. They had the ability to alter the very fabric of existence, and they had proven it in a way that left the entire galaxy shaking. The Myrics were not the first to vanish. They wouldn't be the last. The humans had quietly, but decisively, altered the balance of power in the galaxy forever, and now no one knew how to stop them. Word of the Myrics' sudden disappearance spread quickly through the galaxy, carried by the whispers of nervous diplomats and the frantic messages of concerned leaders. The event was nothing short of a catastrophe for the Federation, but it was also something far worse, an existential crisis. For the first time in their long, storied history, the galaxy's most powerful civilizations found themselves at the mercy of a force they could neither comprehend nor control. Across star systems, panic took hold. The Myrics had been one of the most feared species in the galaxy, their fleets unmatched in their ferocity. To watch them vanish, without a single shot fired, without a trace of what had happened, was enough to send a ripple of fear through even the most powerful of governments. The Lorids, the Eldrin, the Vaxillians, all had underestimated the humans, but now they understood that the stakes were far higher than anyone had imagined. For weeks, the galaxy's leaders convened in secret, holding tense summits to discuss the implications of what had occurred. The council chambers were filled with fear and uncertainty as each race looked to the others for answers. The Myrics were gone. Who would be next? The humans had shown that they could erase anyone, any race, any civilization, with nothing more than their presence in the room, and they didn't even seem to recognize the scale of their power. There was no immediate solution, no clear path forward. No one had ever faced anything like this before, and for the first time, the Federation realized they could not rely on their usual tactics. Diplomacy had failed. Their military might was meaningless in the face of a force that could rewrite reality itself. The Federation had prided itself on its ability to control the galaxy, to dictate the rules by which all civilizations played. But now, one species, the humans, had shattered that illusion. In secret, a faction of the galaxy's most powerful leaders began to explore drastic measures. They couldn't allow this kind of power to remain unchecked. The only way to deal with it, they decided, was to suppress the very essence of what made humans so dangerous. They began drafting plans to isolate humanity, to cut them off from the rest of the galaxy, to find some way to neutralize their creativity, their ability to imagine the impossible. The Federation's brightest minds convened in hidden laboratories, poring over the archives of every species they could access, looking for a way to stem the tide of human innovation. Some proposed a psychological barrier, a mental block that could sever the humans from their ability to dream. Others suggested a physical restriction, an embargo on all knowledge, technology, and culture in hopes of stifling the development of new possibilities. But as the weeks dragged on, the reality of the situation began to settle in. Even if they could cut off all communication, even if they could isolate the humans physically and mentally, they could not stop the one thing that made humanity so dangerous: their relentless will to create. Every species in the galaxy had limits, barriers they could not cross, boundaries they could not overcome. But humans, they had none. And in that moment, a deep, unsettling truth emerged from the shadows. The Federation was powerless in the face of such limitless potential. At a private summit between the most influential races, a single question hung in the air. What do you do with a species that refuses to be bound by the laws of reality to confront the humans directly, to strike first before they could change the balance of power any further? A war, a campaign to subdue humanity before their power grew too great. But even this plan felt futile. The humans didn't need fleets of ships or massive armies to reshape the galaxy. They had something far more insidious: their ability to imagine the unimaginable, to make the impossible inevitable. A war would only escalate the problem, and any attempt to force them into submission could backfire in ways that no one could predict. Others, more cautious, spoke of diplomacy. But how could they negotiate with a species that didn't play by the same rules? How could they trust that humanity's next dream wouldn't be the undoing of their entire civilization? The galaxy, once so full of certainty, was now paralyzed by fear. The humans were everywhere, moving through the cosmos with unassuming quietude, inventing, creating, reshaping the universe with their thoughts. And no one knew how to stop them. No one knew how to even contain them. The Federation, in its attempt to regain control, found itself trapped by its own hubris. The same arrogance that had led them to dismiss humanity as insignificant was now their undoing. Humanity, it seemed, had found a way to escape the confines of the universe's rules, a way to shape not just their own fate, but the very structure of existence itself. The galaxy could no longer pretend that it had control over the course of its future. And so, as the galaxy trembled in fear, one undeniable truth remained: humanity had changed everything, and there was no going back. In the dark corners of the galaxy, the conversation had shifted. For the first time in millennia, a species that had been at the center of the galaxy's political and social web was beginning to question the very nature of its own power. The Federation had always been the arbiter of peace, the balance keeper, the voice of reason amidst the chaos of countless star systems. But now, a creeping doubt had begun to infiltrate the corridors of power. The humans had disrupted the natural order, diverse but interconnected species knew how to restore its own strengths and limitations, was now a fractured, tense assembly. The discovery of humanity's potential had shaken the foundation of the Federation, turning allies into reluctant enemies and former rivals into uneasy partners, while some factions, still clinging to the hope of diplomacy, began to explore ways of reaching out to the humans. Others, the more conservative, cautious elements, began to contemplate darker options. There was no trust left, only suspicion, fear, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were afraid of what might come next. But amidst the swirling tide of uncertainty, there was one being who had already come to terms with the reality that the galaxy could never return to what it once was. The Eldrin, an ancient race that had long since turned their attention away from the petty conflicts of the galaxy, had witnessed humanity's rise from a distance. The Eldrin had always prided themselves on their ability to peer into the future, to foresee the paths that all races would inevitably take, but humanity had thrown their calculations off course. The Eldrin, unlike the Federation or other galactic powers, had never feared what the humans represented. To them, the appearance of a species that could redefine the rules of the universe was not a threat, but an opportunity. Humanity had something that no other race possessed: the capacity to evolve, not just biologically, but mentally, metaphysically. They saw beyond the horizon, not just with their eyes, but with their very minds. To the Eldrin, humanity was a unique anomaly, a species whose power lay not in what they could build or destroy, but in their boundless capacity to think. And so, in the quietest and most secretive chambers of the Eldrin, a plan was born. It was not a plan to subdue humanity, nor one to isolate them as the Federation had hoped. Instead, the Eldrin sought to understand humanity's strange gift. They saw the humans as a force that could transform the galaxy, not by imposing their will upon it, but by helping it transcend its limitations. The Eldrin reached out, not through overt diplomacy, but through more subtle means. They sent a message, not to the leaders of the Federation, but to the humans themselves. A single encrypted signal, a whisper of hope in the void. They offered no demands, no threats, only an invitation to meet with those who had seen what humanity could become. They did not seek to control humanity, but to join forces with them. The Federation, of course, had no idea. The universe together. The Eldrin had always operated in the shadows, and they would continue to do so. But they knew that the Federation, in its current state of paranoia and fear, would never be able to recognize the true potential of humanity. In their desperation, the galaxy's leaders were missing something fundamental. The humans weren't their enemies. They were the future. And in that future, the galaxy would be something altogether different. Continued to grow, silently but steadily. They were not unaware of the stirrings in the galaxy, the rumors of a force larger than themselves, of ancient races that had begun to take an interest in them. But the humans were not afraid. They had long since shed the limitations that had once confined them. They were no longer bound by the laws of nature, by the restrictions of the known universe. But the restrictions of the known universe, they had learned to shape their own reality, to dream of things that others thought impossible, and to make those dreams real. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't hubris, it was simply humanity. And though the galaxy trembled, humanity marched forward with an unshakable belief that their time had come. They didn't need to conquer the galaxy, nor did they need to bend it to their will. They would change it, and in doing so, would forever alter the way the stars themselves shone. The future wasn't some distant concept. It was something the humans could now touch with their minds, shape with their will, and make into something entirely their own. What the galaxy didn't know was that it was already too late. Humanity had already begun the process of rewriting their future, and no one, the galaxy had never been so still, could stop it. A silence had settled over the known systems, a quiet that permeated even the hearts of the most powerful species. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like an impending storm. For once, the steady hum of hyperdrive engines, the usual thrum of interstellar communication, and the constant motion of fleets across the galaxy had come to a halt. No one dared to make a move. No one dared to speak out of turn. Everyone waited. The Federation's leaders had tried everything. They had isolated humanity, tried to suffocate their innovations with sanctions, stifled any form of communication, and even attempted to sever their connections to the galaxy's most important trade routes. But humanity had adapted, just as they always had. The Federation had underestimated them again, and now their methods of containment seemed laughably futile. Humanity's power was not bound by the rules that governed every other species. The great technological marvels of the galaxy were no match for the relentless drive that pulsed at the heart of every human. It wasn't merely a hunger for discovery or innovation, it was an insatiable need to create. The galaxies had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, but never had one like humanity appeared, so wildly inventive, so utterly boundless in their imagination. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, other species realized they couldn't predict what humanity would do next, and that, more than anything else, terrified them. A handful of humans had realized the full extent of their capabilities long before anyone else. In secret, they had created technologies that didn't just bend the laws of physics, they broke them. They had learned how to fold space itself, how to extract energy from the very fabric of the cosmos, how to reshape the molecular structure of matter with a mere thought. Their minds were no longer tethered to the constraints of reality, and they understood that the universe itself could be sculpted into whatever form they desired. While the galaxy cowered, attempting to formulate new ways to deal with the growing human threat, those few humans who had already glimpsed this power moved quietly among the stars. They spoke no words, made no demands. They simply changed things. On a small, seemingly insignificant planet, A scientist was working late into the night, tweaking the equations of his latest experiment. What he didn't realize was that his work was the beginning of something far larger than he could ever fathom. He had just discovered a method for humans to interface directly with the quantum structure of the universe, bypassing the physical laws entirely. Within hours of his breakthrough, the solution was shared with thousands of others. Word spread, and in the blink of an eye, humanity unlocked a doorway to a new era, one where their will could reshape reality itself. In the heart of the Federation's capital, a holographic projection flickered to life on a private communication line. It was a message from Earth. A group of humans, ordinary citizens, had sent it. It wasn't a threat, nor an ultimatum. It was simply a vision of what was to come. The transmission began with a slow zoom out, showing the serene blue planet from orbit. Slowly, the image shifted, revealing cities, vast, gleaming structures rising above the planet's surface, powered by technologies that no one had ever seen. Entire ecosystems shifted before the Federation's eyes, as vast swaths of land were terraformed with ease, oceans were controlled, and weather patterns altered at will. It wasn't a dream or a hallucination. It was happening. The humans were no longer confined to the limits of their biology. They had learned how to interact with the core of existence itself, and they were not just changing their own world, they were changing the very structure of the universe. The Federation reacted in a way that no one expected. We're ready. They did nothing. The once proud empire of the stars, with its legions of diplomats, generals, and scholars, was paralyzed. The humans were no longer just a species to be controlled or ignored. They were a force of nature, too powerful to challenge directly and too elusive to predict. And then, without warning, the first of humanity's great creations came to pass. An artificial star, brighter than any the galaxy had ever seen, was born in the depths of empty space. It was not the product of a fleet of ships or a massive scientific effort. It simply appeared, created by a single human mind, acting alone. The star burned with an intensity that reshaped the nearby systems, altering the orbits of planets, creating new energy sources, and providing a limitless well of power for the galaxy to tap into. As quietly as they had arrived, the humans disappeared, not from the galaxy, but from the sight of all who had once feared them. They had learned to exist in the spaces between the stars, no longer confined to the physical plane. They were everywhere, and yet nowhere. They had become the fabric of reality itself. The galaxy, once so sure of its place in the universe, was left to wonder. Was this the end? No one could answer. Or had humanity the galaxy's most powerful forces had seen their reign upended? And yet, in the silence that followed, one thing was certain: the future would no longer be decided by the Federation or anyone else. It would belong to the humans.